Good evening from New York. As I left my father's hospital room, I was accosted on the street by an EMT, an emergency medical technician, who had run half a block at full speed to tell me something he thought was very important. It's not just, he said, about life panels, about end-of-life care decisions and conversations. It's about something even more important than that, living wills, what you can do to assure that nothing is done to you that you don't want. And good evening again from New York. As promised, an update on my father's health and some important words from an EMT about your health and what is done to you in the hospital when you are not conscious enough to say anything about it. My father, after 3 weeks nearly of being sound asleep, not in a coma, not unconscious, but so sick he could not wake, has opened his eyes. We don't know the prognosis. We went through a lot in the last 3 weeks, including some very risky and dangerous even procedures that we all had to gather together and decide whether or not it was appropriate to do, whether or not it fit in exactly with my father's guidelines and instructions. However, because of the number of conversations we had, the life panel we had with and without physicians, we were able to know that what we were deciding was not a question of an elephant or a mouse, but the choice of two different mice. We knew that if we were wrong, we were only wrong by a little bit of doing exactly what he wanted. That is the essence of the value of having the conversation with your loved ones, even if you're all perfectly healthy and young, about what to do when that time comes, if it comes at some point, hopefully in the distant future. But as I was saying earlier in the show, as I left my father's hospital room one day, I was accosted by an EMT, an emergency medical tech, who had seen me coming in the opposite direction, stopped his vehicle, and ran half a block. He was out of breath as he talked to me and said, "You have to tell them the other things. You have to talk not just about life panels, but about living wills. You should have a living will right now, before the end of business tomorrow, if you can arrange it." He said, "All I do, my entire career is now reduced to this, shuttling people who are unconscious and have no hopes of ever recovering from hospitals to the hellholes." He meant by the hellholes nursing homes. Many of them are wonderful facilities. Some of them are as he described them. He said, "All I do is take people at tremendous cost from place to place to do things that do nothing in terms of getting them to recover, but only pertain to keeping them technically alive. Leave instructions, leave living wills, leave a note in your wallet that says, this is what I want you to do, this is what I don't want you to do, and here is who speaks for me if I cannot. Have it with you." So the question then becomes, legally, what is a living will? It's also known as an advance directive or healthcare directive or physician's directive. The requirements for any legal document vary state to state, so it's a good idea to have a lawyer's help on this. In a living will, you declare exactly which life-prolonging treatments are acceptable. As long as you can speak for yourself, the living will not be triggered. It takes effect only if you become incapacitated. And even then, it usually requires a certification by two doctors that you are either permanently unconscious or suffering from a terminal illness. For example, if you were to lose your consciousness from something like a heart attack, which is not necessarily terminal, the living will would not be triggered. And at least two people will be familiar with your living will, your primary doctor and a person you designate as your health care proxy. The health care proxy does not need to be a family member. In the case of my father, I'm his health care proxy. It certainly will not hurt if you carry a copy of your living will in your pocket, including the contacts for your doctor and for your health care proxy. There are other situations that are not life-threatening which can require a health proxy and the health care power of attorney, as it is called in most states. That may be a separate document or part of the living will itself. We can discuss that in length at another time. It is also useful to make other people aware of your living will, family, friends, religious advisors, simply because it increases the odds that caregivers become immediately aware of your wishes. Much of this information is courtesy of allaw.com, to which we refer you for more details. Finally, all of the decisions about treatment options should obviously be discussed with your doctor or doctors before you execute a living will, and the process by which healthcare reform would permit you and your doctor or doctors to be reimbursed for that discussion is what Mrs. Palin and the others who do not care have called death panels. We call them life panels. Finally, for a little levity in this, I am indebted, in fact, to Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh, of all people, announced on the subject of healthcare reform the following: "I'll just tell you this. If this passes and it's 5 years from now and all that stuff gets implemented, I'm leaving the country. I'll go to Costa Rica." The last we heard about the sunny nations of vacation and the subject of health care from this self-inflating life raft of condescension and misinformation, Mr. Limbaugh was being stopped at customs on his way back into this country from the Dominican Republic while carrying somebody else's Viagra. But Costa Rica? Really? Costa Rica, where they have had for 60 years a hybrid public and private health care system? And all the insurance there is sold by the government? Rush Limbaugh endorsed single payer? Thank you for your attention and for all of your kind words again about my father's help. As was once said by George M. Cohan, my father thanks you and I thank you. The Rachel Maddow Show is next. For Lawrence O'Donnell, I'm Keith Olbermann. Good night and good luck.